I've used the 8 Sleep Pod 3 cover for over a year now, and here's my honest review. What's great, what's not, what my girlfriend says about it, and who the system is best for. Spoiler alert, it's really good, but definitely not perfect. If you followed me before, you know I take sleep very seriously, almost obsessively. Growing up with sleep onset insomnia made falling asleep a struggle. It wasn't until med school and residency that I began systematically optimizing my sleep. And one of the biggest game changers, temperature control. To fall asleep, your body needs to cool down by 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit, which triggers melatonin release. A cooler bedroom is key, and blankets allow you to fine-tune that comfort zone by giving you control to adjust as needed. So you can stick an arm or a leg out from under the covers, which allows you to cool and modulate that temperature. Back as a kid, I'd feel too hot to sleep. I'd try to crank up the AC at night, only to get shut down by the parents because of costs. And they said, hey, go open the window or turn on a fan, but that was of course woefully inadequate. Now, thanks to 8 Sleep, I can work through some of these childhood struggles, and I've got the ultimate sleep hack that handles cooling and more specifically, fine-tuning the temperature of my bed throughout the night better than anything else I've tried. So what exactly is 8 Sleep? It is a mattress cover that functions like a thermostat for your bed. So whether you want to cool your mattress to 55 degrees Fahrenheit or warm it up to 110 degrees Fahrenheit, it does it all while tracking metrics like heart rate, respiratory rate, and sleep stages. It's a dual zone system too, so you and your partner can customize your own temperatures on each side of the bed without any arguments, or almost any arguments, as you'll soon find out.
It was at this moment that he knew he fucked up.
The pod cover is connected to the central hub that houses everything. It has the pump, holds the water, obviously, and warms or cools it, and then pumps it to your mattress cover via this tubing that goes back behind your bed and connects to the mattress cover near the headboard. It then has capillaries that cover the entire bed, bringing that cooled or heated water throughout the top of the mattress. Now, given evaporative losses, I find myself having to top off the machine once every 3 months or so, but I also live in Las Vegas, a desert, so your frequency might be lower. It's as simple as removing the tank, filling it with a mix of hydrogen peroxide and distilled water, and putting it back. I actually fill it up with 3% hydrogen peroxide straight from the store, which I find easier than mixing it with distilled water. My understanding is that the hydrogen peroxide is there to prevent mold growth and other nasty stuff in the water tubes and the various internal components, and that by using 3%, it shouldn't really be an issue. But honestly, you should probably just do what the instructions say. Based on your sleep schedule and sleep stages, you can set your 8 Sleep to heat and cool at various times over the night. And in the morning, it can heat up and even vibrate you to serve as your wake up alarm so that you don't have to use that phone alarm that we all hate. The issue I find, however, is that everything is controlled via your phone, at least in the Pod 3. And if you're like me and you're trying to reduce your phone usage at night, this is gonna make that a little bit harder. Now, theoretically, you could just set things up from your phone and let it run from there, but from my experience, I do need to fine-tune things multiple times per week, either changing the alarm settings for the following morning or adjusting the temperature up or down a couple degrees as I'm getting into bed. But this is more common when the seasons are changing, because then the temperature inside my house is less consistent. But keep in mind, with the Pod 4, you're able to adjust the temperature without using your phone. They heard our feedback and they acted on it, which is always awesome to see in a company. Now, onto what I liked about the experience. The first and biggest thing is decreased sleep latency. I'm able to fall asleep faster. And for someone who has struggled with sleep onset insomnia, this is a game changer. I mean, this benefit alone makes the product worth it for me. Having the bed help cool me and prepare my body for sleep has worked absolute wonders. Prior to 8 Sleep, I would stick my legs out from under the blankets and then use a fan to help cool me, which isn't a bad option, but it doesn't have the same cooling power. And yes, even as an adult in my own place, I can finally crank the AC, but doing so too far, I found would result in me falling asleep, but then I'd wake up in the middle of the night too cold. Which brings me to my next point, temperature curves over the course of the night. 8 Sleep allows you to program in your own custom temperature curve. It does have a slight learning curve, and I found my sleep quality actually worsened during the first week, as I was still figuring out what temperatures worked best for me. But once it's dialed in, you can get it to cool you to help you fall asleep, and then slowly warm throughout the night, peaking at your wake up time, which is when your body needs to do the inverse and actually warm up by 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit. Next up, the adjustability across each side. When I'm sleeping alone, the entire bed sets to my preferred temperature, or I could just turn the other side of the bed completely off. And when my girlfriend is visiting me, I can set my temperature independent of hers. She often has hers near the maximum of 110 since she's a turtle, which is a reptile, meaning she's cold-blooded, and I can set mine somewhat cooler, around 68 or 69 during the summer, and 75 or 76 during the winter. Now, related to this, 8 Sleep features automatic adjustments whereby it'll make small changes to the temperature, either up or down, using what they call autopilot, and it's based on various factors, things like indoor and outdoor temperature, your sleep history, your current sleep stage, and prior feedback that you've given the app. Meaning, have you gone in and manually adjusted the temperature up or down? It works pretty well, and I expect that over time, as they gather more data and improve their algorithms, it's probably only going to get better. Next, sleep data. It is incredible how they're able to completely seamlessly track your sleep using sensors built into the cover. You don't ever have to wear a smart ring or a watch or a strap for tracking your sleep ever again. You don't want to, but keep in mind, you're obviously only getting sleep tracking when you're sleeping in your own bed and not while you're traveling or sleeping in a different bed. And finally, it's low maintenance, just requiring the occasional refill. I absolutely hate buying things that require significant cleaning or maintenance or work from me. I want to simplify and streamline my life, not add more complexity. Quick little bonus section. This is what my girlfriend likes, and here's what she had to say. First, and most importantly, it keeps her warm. She said that the issue when we sleep together is that I keep my house pretty cool, so she'll always be freezing and need to wear clothes and sometimes even a couple layers to stay warm in bed. Secondly, and related to this, she's actually excited to get into bed because if the rest of the house is cold, she knows it's gonna be toasty inside her bed on her side. But then she added that I sleep on an icebox, and because she is a cuddle monster and always ends up next to me at night, sometimes she finds herself back on the cool side of the bed. But overall, she said, and I quote, "It's a great product and she'd love to have it in her future home." All right, now on to what I did not like. The first thing is that the sleep data is good enough for most people, but it often overestimates my sleep compared to my other trackers. There have been many instances where I'm awake in bed. Maybe I am struggling to fall asleep, which is a lot more rare now, but still does occasionally happen. Or maybe I'm FaceTiming someone or just reading a book, and it thinks I'm asleep when I review the data in the morning. But in contrast, my various smart rings, my Apple Watch, and my Whoop, by the way, I have videos of all of them up here in this playlist and also linked below, they all know that I'm awake. And I think that's because those devices that are on either my wrist or my bicep or my fingers, they can pick up those smaller motions like I'm turning a page on my Kindle or I'm scratching my nose or whatever. Whereas the 8 Sleep can't detect those smaller movements. It's sensing your larger body movements based on your weight over the cover. And I think that's why it sometimes has these false negatives. Next up is the learning curve. It will give you recommendations based on average settings for users, your age, your gender, etc. But remember, you might have different preferences than average, like I did. So the first week that I bought it, I actually slept worse since I was waking up in the middle of the night, either too cold or too hot, and it took a little bit of trial and error until I got it dialed in. Next up, the controls, and more specifically is that you have to use your phone with the Pod 3. The good news is that with the Pod 4, which is normally a few $100s more than the Pod 3, it does have physical controls integrated on the cover that do not require your phone. And if you use my link in the description, you can get either one on a discount right now. And currently, the Pod 4 is only $100 more than the Pod 3, which is what I would go for personally. In fact, I plan on upgrading very soon. Next up, the price and subscription model. It's definitely not cheap, and the price is going to vary a little bit based on the size of your bed. A king will run you about $2,500 for the Pod 3, and the Pod 4 is around $2,850. Although right now, if you use my link down below, you can get the Pod 3 for $2,300 and the Pod 4 for $2,400. Of course, note that the prices and the discount may change from the date that this video is published. And keep in mind that on top of that, to get all of the sleep tracking and autopilot and all these other features, you will need to pay a subscription of $180 per year. And finally, I do have a fear of leakage. No, not that kind, my pod cover. But it's not really fair to call it a con of the product since I haven't had any leaks myself, but I do have a motorized bed base from Tempur-Pedic, which I have used a handful of times with the pod cover on, and I've had no issues, no leaks, no nothing. But after reading about a few horror stories on Reddit about leaks, I'm now careful not to use the motorized base, for fear it increases the risk of having leaks. I also keep a mattress cover underneath my Pod 3 cover so that if there is a leak, it doesn't damage my mattress. The cool thing is with the Pod 4, you can buy it with 8 Sleep's motorized base, and it will detect you snoring and elevate your head slightly. They call this snoring mitigation. Really cool stuff. But here's the weird thing. I found this thread about the Pod 3 over on Reddit, and 8 Sleep support actually said, the pod requires no kinks or beds in the water mat to ensure the proper functionality of the liquid powered temperature feature. With an adjustable base, there is a risk of damage to the cover. It would have to be in a flat, non-inclined position at all times, even when the pod is turned off. It is a bit confusing with the Pod 4 now having that feature, but I think it's because the Pod 3 is likely susceptible to damage on a motorized base, but now the Pod 4 likely has some changes or improvements that allow it to function in this way without that risk. And finally, of course, what my girlfriend doesn't like. First, it takes too long to warm up according to her, but she also maxes it out at 110 degrees. Hashtag turtle troubles. Generally, this won't be an issue since it's going to begin setting your temperature prior to bedtime, such that when you get in at your regular bedtime, it's already at your desired temperature. But there are 2 instances where this has been a problem. First, if we're sleeping well before our usual bedtime, let's say we're traveling and we're jet lagged, or we're sick, or just having an exhausting day. And second, if we're traveling but return sooner than 8 Sleep is expecting. So the app has this feature called away mode, and you just tell it when you're traveling, you're not going to be at home, so it doesn't waste energy heating and cooling the bed. It asks you when are you leaving and when are you coming back. The problem is that if you change your travel plans and you come back sooner, then the pod cover still thinks you're away and it won't turn on. And conversely, if you come later, it will turn on even if you're not at home and you don't use the bed that night, or for multiple nights as it was recently for me. I feel like a pretty simple and seamless solution would have either geofencing or some Wi-Fi ping access to your phone, such that if it sees your phone on the same Wi-Fi as the pod, because again, the pod needs to connect to the Wi-Fi for your sleep tracking and autopilot and all that stuff, then it will decide that you're at home and it will turn back on. Hopefully they consider adding that feature in the future. All right, so final verdict. If, like me, you've grown to prioritize sleep more as you get older, then you understand that when you look at your bank account or credit card statements, your expenses should align with your priorities. And that's why, since 2019, I've made a concerted effort to spend more in 3 areas. That's fitness, nutrition, and sleep. So fitness can be coaching, equipment, memberships. Nutrition is of course focused on high quality ingredients and meals. And in the sleep category, the 8 Sleep is one of the bigger expenses behind my mattress and my motorized blackout shades. But after more than a year of using it, I can confidently say that it's one of the reasons I love sleeping in my own bed way more than any hotel, Airbnb, or family or friend's house. If you have the budget for it, or you are willing to reallocate your budget to prioritize sleep, since of course, as we all know, it's one of our core pillars of health, longevity, and happiness, then I do believe it's well worth the investment. Use my code below for a special discount, and as a small way to support the channel that actually saves you money. Let me know about your experiences using 8 Sleep, and since you like sleep tech, check out this video or that one.